Please remember to like this video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video. Also, in the description of this video, you can find my compiled link. Through there, you can find my YouTube channel, Patreon, email, Your Playmat affiliate link, TCG Player affiliate link, Discord, Twitter, TikTok, and Non-Magic the Gathering YouTube channel, the CJ. Thank you for watching. How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. We're doing first thoughts today. This first thought is on Jin-Gitaxias Progress Tyrant. New card from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It looks sweet, very powerful, new Praetor, super exciting. But before we hop into that, I just want to let you guys know I got a new YouTube channel if you want to check that out. It's for non-Magic the Gathering stuff. So if you like gaming and just random stuff like that, check it out. It's in the description of this video in my compiled link. And we're hopping into this. Jin-Gitaxias Progress Tyrant. So I've got a few different categories I want to talk about here, and then a bunch of one-off cards, of course. I want to talk about some flash enablers, some splashy cards that are instant sorceries or artifacts, that way you can copy them, and some counter stuff, like cards that synergize with counter synergies, because you're going to be countering spells. A bunch of one-off cards, and then in the 99. But there's a little one-off card I want to talk about before we hop into any of these major categories, and that is Arcane Laboratory. This card's insane. Basically, with Jin-Gitaxias, your opponents will not be able to cast instant sorceries or artifacts because the first ones they play each turn is countered, and they only play one spell each turn. Auto include in the deck. It's going to be a very, very powerful card in this deck. Super exciting there. Next up, we're going to talk about Flash Enablers because it's each turn only triggers once each turn. So if you cast something during your opponent's turn, Jin-Gitaxias will trigger as long as it's an artifact, instant, or sorcery. So some of the ways you can cast an artifact, instant, well, an artifact or sorcery really, because instants you can cast any turn, but artifact and sorceries, ways that you can cast those during your opponent's turns, include cards like Emergence Zone, Leyline of Anticipation, Shimmermere, Tidal Barracuda, Bidalcan Orrery, and Winding Canyons if you're using artifact creatures. If you're very heavy on artifact creatures, that would be a very good include. Next up, or also, because you're going to be casting spells during your opponent's turns, Wave Break Hippocamp seems pretty fantastic as a card draw engine, and Sword of Feast and Famine and Unwinding Clock let you untap your mana sources because you're going to be playing mono blue, so you're going to run a lot of artifact ramp. So Unwinding Clock's going to help with that. But both of those cards can help you to create a lot of extra mana, so that way you lands are untapped for your opponent's turn, so you can get that trigger off again. Seems very good. Next up, I'm going to talk about splashy cards, starting off with instants. So some cool instants that you can copy with Jin-Gitaxias' ability include Sublime Epiphany and Mystic Confluence. Unfortunately, when you copy a spell as modal, it's copying the same modes, so you're going to be able to counter twice. Not a huge deal there. But the rest of the abilities seem great. You'll be able to get some extra card draw, some extra copying, bouncing, whatever. Seems good. Both those cards seem like they would put in a lot of work. We have Factor Fiction, just draw a bunch of cards. Insidious Will seems really cool. And then X spells like Blue Sun Zenith, Commander's Insight, and Pull from Eternity seem awesome because copying the spell copies the value for X. So if you dump all your mana into a Blue Sun Zenith for 10, you get to draw 20 cards. That seems really good. Also, instant speed. You have Nexus of Fate. Extra turns seems great. And now we're going to hop into sorceries, starting off with extra turns, because copying your extra turn spells seems awesome. You can chain them together and just go nuts. So some of the other extra turn spells that are sorceries that would work really well in the deck include Temporal Trespass, Time Warp, Expropriate, Time Stretch. There's so many. Just any extra turn spells seems fantastic in this deck. You can also use cards like Clone Legion just to copy your opponent's boards, two of your opponent's boards. That seems great. Mnemonic Deluge, cast some big sorceries out of your graveyard a bunch of times. Blatant Thievery, just steal everything. Acquire and Bribery, just steals things from your opponent's decks. Like 2 things for each one, seems great. 2 artifacts or 2 creatures, love that. And then Curse of Swine, a board wipe that you can pay less mana into because X would get copied. So if you put 3 mana into it, you can actually exile 6 things. That seems pretty good. That in this deck, Curse of Swine just becomes a lot more mana efficient, basically. And next up, artifacts. Some cool artifacts that, if you double up, would be disgusting. Blightsteel Colossus. Who doesn't want 2 Blightsteel Colossuses? Meteor Golem, just to blow up multiple things. Also, those are both creatures, so that would work with Winding Canyons really well. Cage Sun and Gauntlet of Power, just to double your mana and such. Those seem really powerful in this deck, like double the mana and then double it again, so you're tapping, well, not double, but additional mana and then additional again. So if you play Cage Sun, you get 2 Cage Suns. Each of your islands tap for 3 mana. Seems great. You've got Duplicate, more removal. Torrential Gearhulk to bring back those big instants and sorceries that you're already copying. And so this one, it enters and you cast Torrential Gearhulk, it copies. So you have 2 Torrential Gearhulks, so you get to hit 2 different instants or sorceries out of your graveyard and cast them for free. That seems great. Aeon Engine seems really cool because if you have 2 of them, you can reverse a turn order. Though you pass a turn, then reverse a turn order, so it comes back to you. Then the next person goes and you pass, then you reverse turn order and it comes back to you. So it kind of gives you additional turns and it really screws over the player across the table from you. But that seems like a pretty cool little synergy. And Phyrexian Metamorph seems really cool. Just a clone that copies. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Next up, we're going to talk about some counter synergy stuff. I only have a few cards to talk about here, and those include Baral, being able to loot every time you counter a spell. Seems great, because every time your opponents are going to try to cast, are going to need to have to cast instants and sorceries and artifacts at some point in the game. So they're going to cast one, get the counter off, and then cast another one, so that way they can actually play things. So you get encounters, or you're countering. So Baral will let you rummage. Lil Mage Mentor will give you creature tokens, which you can then tap to counter more spells. That seems great. Guile seems like an auto include in this deck and a really powerful one. Super cool card. You don't see, it doesn't see play that often, but anything you counter, you get to take. That seems fun. Super, super fun. You're probably going to want to run a good counter sweep in this deck as well, just so you have extra counter spells in hand so your opponents really can't play. Or so you can just really stop the big threats that your opponents try to do, and it synergizes with a lot of the other cards in this deck. So your Arcane Denial, Counterspell, Force of Will, just all of those counterspells. Mana Drain. Counterspells just seem really good in the deck, so you're going to want to run counterspells too. And now we're on to the one-off cards. So, Ward of Bones seems pretty good because it hates on the permanents that Jin-Gitaxias doesn't hate on. So it slows your opponents down with enchantments, with creatures, with lands. Really, really good there. Just a good way to keep the game fair. Mana Maze. If you're in a heavy artifact theme, the Mana Maze would work really well because you can play colorless artifacts. But if you're not super heavy into artifacts, then Mana Maze is just way too risky. But it can really, really, really stifle your opponents because if they're playing a blue deck and they have 2 instants they want to cast and they're both blue, they cast one, it gets countered, they can't cast the other one because of Mana Maze. Archmage Emeritus. You're casting a lot of instants and sorceries, you're copying a lot of instants and sorceries as well. You're going to be able to draw a lot of cards using that. Primal Amulet and Swarm Intelligence will give you additional copies. Got Eternal Kefnet, similar to those, because when you draw the card, you can reveal it and then play it for 2 or for 2 less. So that seems pretty good. Reshape is a pretty cool card in this deck because it's got an additional cost to sacrifice an artifact, but you don't have to repay the additional cost for the copies. So you can reshape X being 5 and go and get 2 5 CMC artifacts out of your deck into play. That seems pretty powerful. Being able to copy Jin-Gitaxias seems insane because you'll be not because you're countering your opponent's spell 3 times because that doesn't do anything, but because your spells are getting copied 3 times. If you have 3 Jin-Gitaxias, or 2 if you have 3 Jin-Gitaxias, you get to copy it 3 times. If you have 2, then you get 2 copies, 3 total. So some ways that you can copy Jin-Gitaxias include Helm of the Host, Spark Double, and both the Sakashimas. All those seem like fantastic includes for this deck. Gigantic Resonator and Lithoform Engine will let you copy the triggers, so that way you can just copy it again. Seems good. And then Twinning Staff. You're copying spells, might as well copy it again. It's a really, really good card in this deck. Auto include for sure. And lastly, we're on to In the 99. Jin-Gitaxias seems sweet in a Riku deck. A lot of Riku decks rely on instant sorceries and copying them and stuff, so it seems like an auto-include there. Guide Eternal Kefnet, of course. It's good in artifact decks like Breya, Brutaclad, Spellslinger like Veyrin, Talrand. It's cool in like Sakashima and Krark, that partner pairing. And Calamax, because Calamax likes doing things in your opponent's turn, and so does Jin-Gitaxias, so that works out really well. And that is everything I have for Jin-Gitaxias Progress Tyrant. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Peace out, everybody.